a little bit differently. In Hawaii, because there's no racial majority group, there isn't the kind of strict black-white divide that there is in the continent. What is seen as a lot more prominent is ethnicities and the identity of local or not native or non-local. So while there are still a lot of similarities and power dynamics that we're familiar with, the positionalities are just a little bit different. And so you can be Black Indigenous, you can be Japanese local, you can be all sorts of mixtures of things in Hawaii. So we're going to just keep it simple and give you a couple of positionalities to play with.
So you may have heard some of these terms throughout the research presentations tonight, and we've chosen 4 of the positionalities. So the first one is Native Hawaiian or Kanaka Maoli, who are people with a genealogical connection to the lands of Hawaii. The second one is locals, people who have lived in Hawaii for generations but are not native. Then we have immigrants, people who have moved or who have been forced to move to Hawaii. And finally, foreign investors, people who want to purchase land, build a business, or invest in Hawaii in general.
Okay, if there's any questions about these players in the game. All right. The next thing is the strategies that you can use to decolonize Hawaii. So there are 2 different legal avenues that I'll present. The first is federal land recognition. So as we talked about before, Hawaii was actually illegally overthrown and is still a colonial state. So in 1842, Hawaii was recognized as a sovereign nation by the United States, and therefore any attempt to acquire land would require formal legislation or treaty. However, after the overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani, the U.S. illegally annexed Hawaii. And the second thing is the Kuleana Act of 1850, which gave legal land title to Native Hawaiians in perpetuity, which is called Kuleana land parcels.
All right, the next 2 strategies are based on genealogical claims to land. So you guys heard a little bit about what lo'i are. They are cultivation sites for the taro plant, or kalo as it's called by Native Hawaiians. And this is really important as a claim to land because based on Hawaiian creation mythology, the indigenous people are family with this plant. So it's the elder sibling of all Native Hawaiians, and that's kind of one way in which they are genealogically connected to the Aina they live on. So one method of reclaiming this connection is to farm the land and cultivate taro, which is happening at all levels in public charter schools, in community groups, and even university students like this group of individuals before you. And the second strategy based on genealogical claims to land is public protests, and one really salient example of that is the protest happening at Mauna Kea, which is a couple of things. It's the world's largest mountain, measured from the base below the ocean floor to its summit, which makes it a really popular destination. The University of Hawaii owns it and wants to develop the world's largest telescope on it. However, it's also a really sacredly important site for Kanaka Maoli. It's considered the umbilical cord of the island, so kind of the birthplace of all the islands. And it's where a lot of people go to conduct ceremonies and really commune with their ancestors. So in protest of the proposed construction, people have set up aloha checkpoints where they educate, welcome everyone into the community, feed everyone who comes through the site, and disrupt the construction that goes on.
The last strategy we have is giving money or land specifically to the state. So basically, if you have the capital funds or connections, you can decide to give away money to the state government so that they can use this money to fix problems that they see is pertinent to decolonizing the land. And if you don't want to give away your money, you can actually decide to give away your land that you own from your assets to different populations or to the state government as well.
Okay, so this is why it was important for you guys to be sitting. We want you to kind of reach around your chairs. There are 8 little slips of paper taped to the chairs, and we're going to have a couple of you read off those positions. And they're going to be a combination of the positionalities we addressed and the strategies. So right here, a review of all the strategies, because we're going to do 3 of these little examples before we move on to the next segment of the game. So if you have a piece of paper, just like raise your hand and we'll call on you. Should we start with it? Yeah, hold on, let me get you a mic. Okay, well, we'll start with our professor, Auntie Hobart.
one. I am Kanaka Maoli. After investigating family history and inheritances, I used Kuleana land parcels to reclaim some of my ancestral land.
Well, actually, so some background on my research. I actually interviewed Professor Hobart because she is Native Hawaiian and also has Kuleana land parcels, which, just a little bit of background, a lot of bad record keeping and such keeps people from knowing that they have it. So, given your positionality and that strategy, your way to reclaim land. Oh yeah, so yes, the law of the Hawaiian Kingdom in the Kuleana Act of 1850 continues to work in Hawaii today, but U.S. quiet title is meant to clarify ownership rights to the land and force it to be sold to the highest bidder through public auction. So although you do have Kuleana land parcel, people like Mark Zuckerberg can buy your land that contains Kuleana land parcels and sue Kanaka Maoli for the lands through quiet title, which by the way happened. He gave up the suit, but
Yeah. Real life example, so I'm sorry you've been denied. You're rejected. All right, read another hand? Yeah. Yes.
sorry.
I am a local and I donated to an Indigenous activist group.
Okay, so it's great that you donated money to an Indigenous activist group, and it's probably the best way to use your funds, but unfortunately you can't just throw money at problems. So there are still a lot of roadblocks that you have to get through, so like bureaucracy through the government, as well as how you're going to distribute that land. So for example, in the research that we did, there's this rich business owner who decided to reclaim the land and give it back to houseless people, but unfortunately in doing that, the original houseless population that was there was kicked off and was not allowed to return back, and even the people that they were trying to like advertise this to couldn't even afford it. So that's just one problem out of many.
All right, and we'll take one last example.
I am an immigrant and I participate in a lo'i in my community.
So that is also awesome. You also get a gold star. But unfortunately, due to the past 200 years of colonialism and neo-colonialism in Hawaii, most of the people participating in this lo'i with you are also immigrants or otherwise non-natives and just generally not native. So while this is a really invaluable practice in returning indigenous knowledge to the physical space of Hawaii, it doesn't succeed in the objective of our game, which is returning land to Kanaka Maoli.
One more, if anyone has it.
I am local and I lobbied for federal land recognition on behalf of Kanaka Maoli.
Wow, that one's my favorite. Yeah, because, you know, they were declared sovereign. So great job forcing the legislature of the U.S. to recognize their wrongs of illegally annexing Hawaii through no formal treaty after declaring them sovereign. Issues concerning sovereign nations are actually under the jurisdiction of the federal government. Anyone know who is our current leader of the federal government? Exactly. So if you argue that the U.S. had already declared Hawaiian sovereignty, any resolution would have to go through the current president and Supreme Court. If Trump's administration takes this on, this will either cause no change or the situation could get worse for Kanaka Maoli. So this isn't meant to discourage the action of decolonization, but rather bring light onto the issues that happen. And another thing, oh yeah, so the point of this game then is to,
So we're going to move into the next phase of our game because I don't know if you noticed that all of those strategies failed. We're going to try something else. So we want everyone holding a piece of paper to turn to their neighbors and try and strategize together, try and combine a couple of positionalities, combine a couple of the strategies and come up with a proposal that you think overcomes some of the negatives that we just dumped all over you. Converse.
Just a reminder, you can use different positionalities and different strategies. One more minute.
Well, there was the one that came out.
You like Facebook
Alrighty, come back together.
All right, okay, so can we get a volunteer from the audience that has an idea of a strategy?